Good morning. You can see my instrument cluster is still lit up like a dang Christmas tree. I'm actually getting the seats coated in today, remotely, from a friend of ours who used to work for BMW or still works for BMW. Anyways, guys, good morning. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video with your boy, Vic. F30, E90, F87, whatever, dude. Let's just call him Vic. But you guys, today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the M2. Now that I've had it for a little bit of time, I want to talk about if it's worth it. Like, is this the right car for you to buy? We'll get into a little bit of, you know, why didn't I get the competition? Is the competition better? Do I want the competition? We're basically just gonna go over a bunch of things regarding the M2 that hopefully will help people if they're looking to buy this car, make a decision. And after owning this car for quite a bit of time, there's just many things to discuss regarding, is this the right car for you? And look, I get so many DMs about people who are interested in buying, you know, the OG N55B M2, the pre-competition version, and a lot of people asking me, why didn't I get the competition version? But first, you guys, let's just talk about the obvious. The obvious is that I love this car. This car is amazing. Everything from the way that it looks to the way that it drives, the way that it sounds, the way that it puts down the power, the way that it handles, the modifications that are available for it. There are so many reasons why I love this car and why I think that this is probably one of the best BMWs that money can buy you, especially right now. Right now we have the valves closed. We'll go ahead and open those up a little bit. It is raining out today, so we're a little bit limited when it comes to ripping around and doing what we do. Still sounds good though, man, that N55. All right, yeah, so the first thing we're gonna talk about is the price of the car, and this is a big part of why this car is just such an awesome buy for anyone who's looking to get into a BMW M car. The price on these cars right now are in the, I mean, you can find them in the 30,000s. I was looking this morning and I found a few for $31,000. So low 30s, almost 20s to get you into a newer F chassis M car is pretty amazing. Now, there's a lot to argue about the fact that the pre-competition version M2 isn't really a M car. That's how some people feel about this car, because it doesn't have the S55 and there's a lot of things missing, like the seats aren't as good. Obviously, I switched mine out to M4 seats, so they're a little bit better now, but you guys get my point. There are a lot of things that BMW intentionally left out of the OG M2 because they wanted to create incentive for people to buy the M2 competition. What we are really getting from this car is the chassis. The chassis of this car is unbelievable, and it's one of those things that you notice right away when you drive it. Even if it's stock, these cars just handle incredibly well and they feel really good when you're driving them. This is for sure the enthusiast's car, the driver's car, the way that it handles, the responsiveness, how connected you feel to the car, especially with the manual 6-speed transmission. This car does a really good job of mixing the bucket between modern and raw feeling. Like some of the characteristics that I had in my E90 M3, and then some of the characteristics that I had in like my F30. Like that modern to old school technology kind of meets in one place. This car does a really good job of kind of mixing those two breeds. One thing for me, when I first bought this car, you know, I was concerned about the size. I wasn't sure if this car would have like enough room in general or if it would feel too small. You get used to it very quick. I don't ever use the back seats. Even in all of my sedans that I ever had, I never used the back seats, so it was kind of pointless for me to have them in the first place. And the trunk is massive in this car, so you really don't run out of space like you'd think you would. This car has plenty of room for putting things in the trunk, storage, all that stuff. So I looked this morning, and these cars, the OG M2, you can buy them 2017 in the 30s, in the low 30s for about 30,000, 40,000 miles. I bought mine for in the mid 30s with about 30, mid 30,000 miles on it. So we are seeing the prices go down in the OG M2 because of the M2 competition, the M2 CS. All of these newer versions of the M2 have come out, which have driven the OG M2 prices down. To be able to get your hands on one of these cars in low 30s is just a steal, man. I just feel like personally you're getting so much car for that money. Now here is where the consideration of the M2 competition comes in. Why wouldn't you get an M2 competition? One thing that people don't really realize is that the M2 competition is $20,000 more than this car. The cheapest M2 competition that I could find online, wasn't salvaged, was $51,000. So it was literally $20,000 more than the cheapest M2 I could find. Granted, the M2 competition is still it's a newer car, but for me personally, I can't justify $20,000 more for the competition version. Me personally, I just can't justify it. I think that this car has plenty of power, plenty of torque, feels really good. You don't buy this car for straight lines. You buy this car for a track, the way that it handles on the track. You are still going to get all of that in the OG M2 version. So unless you're really concerned about going fast in a straight line and you want the S55, okay, then pay the $20,000. If that's worth it to you, you're gonna get the upgraded seats and everything. But for what I'm doing here on YouTube and creating videos for people, a lot of it comes down to what are the cars that we can find that are affordable right now that people are starting to buy up and can modify pretty easily without spending too much money. And this is the perfect example of that. This car is affordable right now in the $30,000. There are ample modifications that you can buy for it. There's so many companies that make mods for this car. It's insane. The N55 has been around for a long time. There's modifications by nearly every Euro company out there for this car right now. So you're never really going to run out of things that you can put on these cars. And also it creates a lot of competition between the other brands, so you can find really good pricing on those modifications. Now that I've had this car for a little bit longer though, I will say I do want to experience the S55, the M2 competition version of this car. We've done a lot to this car and we kind of know where the ceiling and the limit is, which is pretty much where I'm at right now when it comes to stock internals, stock fueling, stock turbo. We kind of know where that limit is. I also have friends who have M2 competitions, M3s, M4s, all F80s, F82s, and it's very clear that the S55 is an extremely tunable engine and you can get a lot of power out of it without doing a lot of modifications. So that's the draw. That is the draw of the competition version, the S55. Just know that if you are looking for all of the power, then the competition model is for you, and just save up until you have that $50,000 to go after that car, if it's worth it to you. For me personally, I knew that this car would have plenty of power, and I kind of enjoy the game of building the car up as much as I possibly can to see what we can do with these underdogs. I've always been like that. Like even with my 328, that was such an underdog car. I really wanted to see what I could do for that car. And just like the F30 and this N55 M2, they are both affordable. So I knew that I would be making videos for people that could afford the car, or very soon will be able to afford the car because they're becoming so affordable. Not everyone watching YouTube's videos online are millionaires. They don't have all the money in the world to just spend on Lamborghinis and Porsches and all these super expensive nice cars. Some people just want to know how to tune their 328 or their N55. Like not everybody has M3s, you know what I mean? So that was really my angle when it came to making videos and building up these cars that are sort of like the underdogs. I wanted to see what we could do. So if you are in the market to buy an M2, in my opinion, the N55 is the way to go. You're gonna save yourself $20,000, get about 30,000 miles on the car. It's about $30,000. That's an affordable car. And it really is a good introduction to a modern BMW M car. Modern-ish BMW M car. So next I want to talk a little bit about the styling of the M2, just like the way that it looks. It's modern. This car it looks very modern. When I had the F30, it was still modern, and I loved the styling of that car. Going from the F30 to the E90, I felt like the E90 was just lacking some of that styling that the F-Series had. I was so used to the F-Series chassis that I really fell in love with the body lines. So when I got back into the M2, it was like, oh yes, I missed this car. I missed this chassis. And in my opinion, the front end on the M2s are the most aggressive out of the M3, the M4, any of them. In my opinion, I feel like the M2 has the most badass front bumper out of all of them. Just the way that it has those big fangs on the side, and it's just got this giant open mouth just begging for a huge front mount intercooler. I just love the way that these cars look, especially if you go the extra mile and do some aftermarket headlights. The front end just looks absolutely insane on these cars. In my opinion, the F-Series chassis looks a lot better than the G-Series. Now, in a few years that might change because the F-Series will just look weird to us. It'll just look a little bit old once we all get used to the G-Series. But as it stands right now, I think the F-Series looks a lot better than the G-Series. I do like the G-Series, but I think that these are going to look a lot better than the G-Series for a while. Sounds so good. The N55, man. Whew. All right, so now we'll talk a little bit about the engine, the N55B, which is just a badass engine. This car is fantastic. If you guys know about the N55 from like the 335s, well, this one's a little bit different. The N55B actually uses a lot of the parts from the S55. The pistons are from the S55. The oil pump system is from the S55. There's actually a lot of stuff that was taken from the S55 and used in the N55, which makes this car a little bit more unique than your traditional 335. These can carry a bit more horsepower than the traditional N55. This engine does have forged internals. It's honestly an awesome engine, and they're super reliable. I mean, even if you go on the forums and you look in the OG forums of the M2s, not a lot of people talk about issues they're having. If they do have issues, they're usually stupid, like silly, like little things, like plastic things breaking or whatever. But as far as the engine is concerned, there's not a lot of issues with this engine. And also the N55B is capable of making good power. Now in today's world, in today's society, we are so used to having huge power numbers, like 600-700 horsepower, you know, BMWs is completely normal. Which is funny because I'm 35, so like when I was younger, like 200 horsepower was a lot. You know what I mean? Like we thought that was a lot. But nowadays it's just a different game. Every car is turbo, twin turbo. They're so tunable. It's easy to get a lot of power out of these cars. But it really is impressive what you can do with the N55B and the M2. Right now we are full bolt-on. We're running a custom tune, and we're sitting just above 400 wheel horsepower, which is really, really good for this car. Mostly we're aiming to about 500 wheel horsepower, and I'm good with that. I don't really need much more. I'm honestly good with it is right now. I'm not like a huge horsepower junkie, but it is exciting to see how far we can push this car. Now to get to 500 wheel horsepower, we're gonna have to do a pure turbo, upgrade our fueling, all of that stuff. Right now we're pretty much at our limit, just a little bit above 400 wheel horsepower with stock fueling, stock turbo, all of that. I daily drive this car exactly how it is, custom tuned, full bolt-ons, pretty low, and I don't have any issues with it. And that's one of the biggest reasons I like this car. It's so reliable. I daily drive it. It's tuned. It makes good power. It feels great on the road. It's predictable while you're driving. It handles really good. Looks great. Pretty affordable. I mean, there's just so many reasons why the OG M2 is just, it is the car to own. And I'm telling you, if you've never driven one, just go drive one. That's all you need to do. The dealership that I went to, I actually went there to buy an M4, look at and drive an M4. I ended up buying the M2 because I liked it better than the M4. And the M4 had the S55 that's, you know, the super fast, crazy tunable engine. But for me personally, when it comes to buying a car, I'm not just going after the car with the biggest and best and most horsepower engine. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a car that's more of an experience. And this car just spoke to me. The way that it drove, especially with the manual transmission, it just was the perfect crossbreed of power and handling and cost and everything. That's why I really think that the M2 is just an awesome package of a vehicle. And especially now that we're seeing these cars in the low 30s, I just feel like it's a great time to pick one up if you can. Every time that I get in this car and I'm driving in back roads, this car blows me away. The way that it handles is just incredible. You can't not smile when you drive this car, I'm telling you. Let's talk a little bit about the transmission. Hot topic, man. Everyone wants to talk about which transmission do you get. I'm a manual guy. I'm gonna come out and say it, you guys already know. I'm all about the manuals in these cars. There's just something about driving a manual. You feel so connected to the car. And that's one thing about the DC. Now the DCTs are fast, dude, super fast. You'll never shift a manual as fast as the newer DCTs can shift. But, if you are looking for a car, and I feel like when you buy this car, you're looking for a car that is more about the enthusiast, the experience of driving the car, get the manual, just get the manual. If you guys are trying to decide which transmission to get, it's quite simple. First of all, just drive both. Second of all, are you looking to do less work and have really fast shifts? If that's you, then DCT is probably for you. If you are looking for experience, the experience out of the car, you're an enthusiast that is looking for a really engaging experience out of the car, manual is for you. And in my opinion, the manual is hands down the way to go in these cars. But that is going to be something that is based 100% on opinion, and there are going to be people who say, no, you need a DCT. It all depends on what you're trying to do with the car. I think that if I was buying a car that was just going to be like a monster in a straight line, I just wanted all the power out of it, yeah, I'd probably go for the DCT. Because let's be honest, that is going to shift way faster than any human being can shift in a manual car. But the way that it feels when you're driving manual, you just feel so connected. You feel so connected to the vehicle. It never loses its fun aspect. And I love when you're in like the back roads and the twisties and the turnies and you're constantly in and out of different gears. You just feel so engaged in the driving experience. Next thing we're gonna talk about is the tech. So the tech in this car is awesome. All of the F-Series have plenty of tech in them. You got Apple CarPlay, you've got a charging port in here. Obviously the larger iDrive screen. The newer ones have touch screen. Now I'm not like a huge tech junkie, but I was missing a little bit of that tech when I had my E-Series. Coming back into the F-Series with this M2, I'm definitely glad that I have, you know, like my navigation and my Bluetooth. Everything is like really simple. It's automatic. You get in the car and it just does it for you. It's nice to have that, especially in 2020 where like every car is super teched out. I think BMW does a great job with Apple CarPlay in general. The way that things are laid out, it's very intuitive. It's easy to understand. And in my opinion, with everything going on in this car and just how engaging it is to drive, I'm not really paying attention to all the technology all the time. But it is nice that in the OG M2s, you're getting a ton of technology. You're getting all the technology that the M3s and the M4s have. So if tech is your thing, you're getting all of that at a good price, $30,000. Really can't beat that. Man, what a incredible car though. Yeah, I've had this car for 8 months. And it's just an incredible car, man. For $30,000, I don't know. I just feel like it's an absolute steal. This being my first F chassis M car, it's honestly just such a sick platform, and the way that the M2, the 2 Series in general handle, it's that really small, stout wheelbase. It's just entirely different than any other car I've driven. So most of you already know that this video is probably a little bit biased because I just love this car, so there's like a lot of positive talking points. I just think for the price right now and how much we can get them, it's totally worth the money. These cars are just so sick. So honestly, if you're looking to get into an M car at an affordable price, this is a fantastic place to start. You can also look at M4s with the S55 engine. Some of those are dipping in the 30s as well. So as far as price range, you can get an older M4 or an M2 like this, an OG M2, in the 30,000s. I think honestly, just getting into an M car in general, both of those options are fantastic. It is important to note though, if you're going after the M4, crank hub. That's something that's going to be looming in the back of your mind until you get it fixed. Unless obviously you have a warranty and you're just going to drive the thing stock and you're not really worried about it. That's a totally different case. I don't live in that world, obviously. None of my cars are ever stock. But hopefully this helps you guys out if you're looking to buy an M2 or you're a little bit more curious about the actual experience of owning an M2. It is such a killer car. And I do think at some point in my life, I will own a competition, an S55 M2, because I do want to experience that as well. I think it's really interesting that this car feels as good as it does with the N55B. I can't imagine how it would feel with 2 turbos with the S55. That just has to be absolutely mental. The M3s and the M4s are super, super fast, super tunable. They can make huge, huge power numbers without a lot of effort. And putting that platform into this car, I just can't imagine how crazy that would feel, because it already feels so fast, like a little go-kart, and it just whips around. It's just so aggressive for how tiny the car is. It packs a lot of punch in a little car. I just can't imagine how that would feel with an S55. But in my opinion, the N55, the way that this sounds, the car, just the modability, just so many things about it. Right now, for me, the N55 is definitely the way to go. And if you want to save yourself $20,000 trying to get into an M car or an M2, then the N55 is for you. Anyways, guys, the M2 is a sick car, no question about it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please do subscribe, comment down below, like this video, hit that bell notification. Just like that, this video is over, and we're out.